Welcome back to Wolfie's Thoughts. I hope the sound quality is a lot better this week. I've tweaked a few things in the background and I'm hoping it's a lot better. If not, we are on the search for a new software, and if anyone knows of one, let me know. But this seems to be working. It was just we had to move a few things around. I soundproofed where I record now. The microphone is in a different area, and I've changed a few settings in regards to how the sound is picked up. But yeah, thank you for the overwhelming niceness of the receipt of the last episode and the YouTube video and stuff like that. It's been a week of me trying to accept compliments from people that I love and know. Um, that's been fun, said not me. But yeah, let's get into it. This week's episode is going to be on living a sober life. As I said, the caveat of the podcast is kind of going to start from kind of me talking about my sober life and then branching out to everything else in the world and what's going on in my life and kind of topics that we want to cover and stuff like that. So if you have any ideas, do just shoot me a DM. The Instagram is down below. But yeah, living a sober life. Is it all it's cracked up to be? Pardon the pun. Crack is whack, as Whitney said. It's good, but it's also bad, and it's in between. And I think the popularized view of a sober life in social media, in movies, and online and stuff like that is kind of the perfect life, and everything's perfect. Nothing ever goes wrong. You don't have lows. There's no super highs. It's kind of painted like everything's perfect. And not to burst anyone's bubble, but it's not. Is my life 150% better than it was when I was in active addiction for 13 years? Fuck yes. But is it, sunshine and roses every day? No. So like it's like normal life. It's just we don't have the things that y'all have because we got addicted to them, so we can't use them as crutches. So it's kind of learning to live without them. And this is just kind of like how the last year's gone for me. Obviously there's been struggles, there's been FOMO, there's been highs and lows, there's been grieving my old life. There's then obviously relearning who I am without my vices. So yeah, like I suppose where I'll start is when I first came out of rehab. So we're talking this literally the day this has been recorded is exactly a year to when I left rehab, which was not planned, but is hilarious now that I'm looking at the date on the calendar. Things happen weirdly, synchronicities and all that kind of stuff. In sobriety, I'm very much a spiritual person now, and I'll also get into that as well. But the struggles, okay. Yeah. I left rehab on the 9th of March 2023, and I was a shell of a human being. I was in there, as previously mentioned, for 5 weeks. It's like, intense therapy, you speak out your feelings, you discuss your childhood. So like technically they rip all of these walls you've had up for years. They remove obviously the thing that you were addicted to and teach you how to like not want to go back to that substance. But like the main thing is like they remove that wall, so like that mask you had, and then they just throw you out to the real world again. Because the rehab I went to, I had no contact with the outside world. I had no mobile phone. We were in obviously with a group of people that were in there. There were 16 people, so you knew them, and like that was your day to day for 5 weeks. Obviously, we seen our family members once a week, and you could have one phone call that was like 2 minutes, five if the person on cover was nice. And you kind of just got thrown back out into the real world. And you're like, oh, they're humans? Feelings. So I remember getting home. Dan happened to be working that night because life goes on outside of recovery and all that kind of stuff. People don't stop just because I got to stop for 5 weeks and be coddled and protected and taught new tools. Everyone else's life continued. So I came out and I was just like a sacrificial lamb thrown to the fucking wolves. I was like, I have all these feelings and I don't know what to do with them. Still to this day, I have all of them feelings. I have a much better grip and handle on them. But when I did like come out originally, it was a lot. Because like when you're far removed from society like that for such like it's over a month. It's a month and a week. Like you just you don't realize what's going on around you. Like we weren't allowed to watch TV or anything like that. It was a lot of like self-taught. So like coming back out and giving your phone, I was like, what is this foreign object? But like it was a struggle bus. I think for the first like 3 nights, I cried in Dan's arms because I was just like, I am so sorry for like the pain and the hurt I've caused you. So it's like when you're in, you kind of get to deal with all of your own emotions, and then obviously when you're released, you see your family friends and you're everyone in your life. Like obviously they always advise like obviously not to like see everyone at once, and but like over your time and you go back out into the real world, it's a lot. Like I remember like just bawling my eyes out, and Dan's like, "What is wrong with you?" I'm like, "I have emotions. These have been gone for 13 years," and that was a lot for Dan as well. It was a lot for a lot of people in my family because I was just like hyper emotional and like so apologetic and like trying to make sure I wasn't stepping on anyone's toes because like I'd been removed from everyone's life for 5 weeks. So like everyone else's life had went gone on. And like I didn't know the intricacies of what happened when I was in there and stuff. Like so you're really picking up on what happened and you're just very. I know for myself, I'm not commenting on anyone else, but for myself, it took a long time for me to like kind of grasp my feelings and like have conversations with people and be like, okay, like is this the life you want to live with me? And are we like there was a lot of that. So it was a struggle bus for a while, like reacclimating to being in the outside world. Like, I didn't have a routine. I was, I was back out. I wasn't being woken at a certain time of the morning. My meals weren't like set to a certain time of the day. So I had to like, I was out of work at the time because I'd been written out for a period of time. And it was kind of trying to keep myself busy, attending my meetings, trying to learn like which fellowship I was going to join. Because like when I was in rehab, I went to all of the fellowships because, as I said in the first episode, I didn't just have one addiction; I had all of them. Well, technically, I didn't. I haven't. Touch wood, I don't have a gambling addiction. Um, but never say never. As I always say, people are like, "Oh, will you be sober forever?" I'm like, I keep it within the 24 hours. I can't answer what's going to happen in 10 years' time, but my plan is to be sober for the next 24 hours, for the next 5 minutes, even at that. Some days it comes to it, but like it was very much a struggle bus trying to like understand relationships. Because I think the thing that people don't talk about a lot when you get sober and you remove that crutch that you've had for however many years you're in addiction, you have to relearn you, which is hard enough because you've said like you have to sit with all the dark parts of you and the good parts of you and like relearn how to be a human and understand your feelings and kind of like decide what path in life you're going to take. But you also have to relearn other people and your relationships with them, because when you're in active addiction you have a relationship that supports you. It's usually one-sided. So like that other person has been hurt a lot, so it's kind of trying to, you know, dir- direct yourself through that and the other person and their feelings and understanding that. And that's like, where sponsors come in and stuff like that. As I said, I won't really go into how the program works or anything like that. That's something that, we keep to the fellowship. And if you do want, obviously, to chat to me about that or anything, obviously, you can reach out. This will just be my personal experience outside of anything to do with obviously personal stuff in recovery. And that's just how the program works and it's how it was designed. I'd never want to use obviously the gift that I was given, and popularize off it or monetize it. That's not what it's about. I think someone said to me the other day about recording these and releasing stuff about it. It just seems real, and it's not. I'm not doing it for a reason, and I wanted to come across like that because that's what's happening. I'm not doing this for anything other than I'm hoping someone listens to this or anything that I put out since the last year and get something from it, because I got a lot of help off a lot of people and I just want to be able to like give a small percentage of that back, because it's amazing the life I've been given. um but yeah, like the first couple of months I was lost. I was like a pet lamb. I apologized about everything. So I had to relearn that I could mess up. I could be a human, and people weren't going to judge me, and that was something alien because as an addict, you're like in defensive mode, like 24/7, 365. There's no stop. So learning that like not everyone was out to get me or had an alternative motive in regards to why they were being nice to me and stuff like that, which was kind of a head fuck. And then obviously people that I had been in with, were struggling on their journey and decided the sober life wasn't for them. So like that kind of stuff is hard, and that happens throughout your sobriety journey and living a sober life. One of the main things I think I struggled with at first was the FOMO, of missing out and not being like, well, I don't get to do this, I don't get to do that, and like the poor me's, because like as an addict, really good at them. It's like, oh my god, poor me, I'm going to use this issue now to use. But when you get sober, obviously they haven't removed all your defects as a human. They're still there. You're still a person that is hurt, that has been hurt, and there's trauma there, there's resentment, there's a lot of stuff. And that's why you go through so much therapy when you do go to a rehabilitation center and stuff like that, whether it's, an in-house stay or it's an external one where you go daily and stuff like that. It's a lot about like, healing that inner child and kind of trying to uncover why the trauma's there and how it affects you. And that's where you learn that like maybe the reason you used was because of something that happened, but then obviously inherently you picked up that solution that you used, that caused the addiction. And like I suppose when I when I was released, I was not in jail. It felt like jail some days, but it was not jail. um I was like, okay, I can never, like, go to a restaurant that serves alcohol and sit down and enjoy a meal. Now, that's not true, but that's how I felt. And you have, like, oh my God, I can never go to a gig and enjoy it. I can never do this again and enjoy it. And you understand that FOMO at the start is because you've been so used to one way of life for so long, whether you're in addiction for a short period of time or a long period of time. You're like, well, I can't do that anymore. That's what you initially think. Well, I did. I was like, I'll never be able to, like, enjoy the things I used to enjoy, like going to gigs, attending birthday parties, going to festivals. I have and will continue to go to them, and they're extremely more enjoyable as a sober person because I actually get to enjoy the event and remember it and not be waking up the next day with the fear, wondering what the fuck I've done. Which, like, oh, that's the one caveat of being sober. I'm like, oh my God, anxiety. How I ever dealt with that for 13 years, I don't know. But like that, now, don't get me wrong, there's FOMO, Sometimes I'm just like, oh, why can't I just, why haven't I normal? Why haven't I like everyone else? And I can just, have a drink. But I can't, and I'm aware of that. So it does pop its little head up every so often. But I think FOMO is something that happens in whether you're in an addict or you're living a sober life. I think FOMO happens just to humans. We're inherently jealous of other people and what they're doing. And it's just understanding how to deal with that emotion and what to do with it. And I suppose I have a great support system around me from my fellowship and also family and friends. So I, had people to turn to talk about that, and they were really honest. Like, yeah, no, at the moment, that's not something you can do. You can't be going to festivals, and you can't be, going out to gigs and stuff like that, because at this current moment, you need to be protected and, like, removed from that side of life. And it's something that obviously you can start to do, like the longer you're in sobriety and the more in control and the kind of the more inner power, and obviously when you're able to hand over your day and stuff, that you'll get the ability to do that again. And sometimes you just don't want to, because like I will go to events to support my friends, and but when I first came out, I was like, oh my God, like I'm gonna, like, when I'm like well enough, I'm gonna be like going out and partying. I go to bed at 10:30. My feet hurt when I stand too long. I haven't got the energy for that anymore. So the FOMO does wear off, because it becomes normal that you want to go on a walk or a hike or go to the cinema or do things that don't involve alcohol. And like I know at first I was like, oh my God, you can't do anything in this country without alcohol. But that's because I only knew what to do in this country with alcohol. I never looked into things that you can do sober. And like there's amazing like sober raves, sober cafes. A lot of the queer spaces and non-queer spaces in Dublin are like safe for sober people and stuff like that. And there's so many amazing things that you can do with friends and family. Like there's them scare houses and escape rooms and all this. Well, going for a walk, I enjoy exercise again, which is something I do have to obviously be careful with because of my food issues. But like just enjoying doing things that are good for me, like going to bed early, um, you know, going out for a walk with the dog, being able to like hold conversation, where before I was just like I would interrupt people because I had a thought and it needed to get out, and like when you're an addict you just need to speak and you don't care what other people are saying. So it's kind of understanding that and not having FOMO for the things that you previously had. Now there has been, I mean, hundreds of highs and hundreds of lows in my journey. um it's obviously been over a year, that I'm sober now. As I previously said, I don't remember January of 2023, and I don't think I ever will. It's something that will be gone. Not that much happened, and I was just sober and dealing with emotions before I went in. But like there was some very low lows at the start, like me, like fearing losing myself. And what I kind of got from obviously editing the previous episode and the video, when I was looking back at that kind of 4 minute and 50 seconds of me in active addiction, was I was fearing the loss of who I was when I used. And that was a big thing during like the first couple of months, being like, who am I? And that gave me a lot of lows. And then kind of understanding that other people, like I was like, I'm fixed now. Like, look, love me. I'm amazing. Um, which I did turn into be. I wasn't at the time. I was a fucking mess. And trying to expect things from other people, but then other people was expecting things from me. So there was a lot of lows because there was a lot of new things happening, new feelings, new situations. So that would obviously cause some lows, but the highs were high. Um, like I think the first 2 months when I came out, like I felt like I was walking on air. And then like, life is life and life hits you in the fucking face. It doesn't care. It's like, cool, dodge, shovel in the face. Um but it's kind of learning to be able to ride the wave. Because that's what everyone else feels, them highs and lows. But when you're in addiction, you numb yourself. So it's just meh. Everything's meh. And like you'll have high highs, but then you're chasing that high, and your lows are very, very low. So I kind of love the fact that I can feel now, that I can feel the highest emotions that I have and the lowest. Um, I did and was taking medication in rehab, and recently came off that medication. And that has meant that I have my full range of emotions back, which has meant that I have had really, really highs recently and really, really lows. But it's being able to understand and counterbalance that and be like, okay, that's normal. My brain is learning, as I no longer have that drug in my body. It was an SSR. It wasn't anything else. But learning life without that SSR for the balance, because that was just balancing me, and it was great for when I needed it. And I was like, okay, it's time now. I wanna do this on myself, do this by myself, live life. And it's been tough. Don't get me wrong. Because I had that crutch. That was the one remaining crutch, and it's not a bad crutch. I know a lot of people in sobriety who are on um, medication, I should say, for mental health issues, and that is completely normal. It was just a decision between me and my doctor, and it was something we talked about, just in regards to, because I don't like being on medication like that, because being on and off it for so long of my life, it did make me feel numb, and I suppose I want to be able to feel my full range of emotions. Which means, I cry at ads and cute videos of babies now, but I also, cry because I feel sad, which is good, because I wasn't able to do that before. I would literally listen to songs to make myself cry, and maybe a tear would fall out, because I thought I was dead inside, but I just completely detached myself from my feelings, and I was just, would have to get very, very low, and I could only like it was the same thing over and over again. If you knew me when I was in active addiction, I was fucking saying the same shit over and over again. And it was like, oh, woe is me, my childhood. Woe is me, what happened to me as an adult. But yeah, no. Feeling emotions is cool. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes I fucking hate it. I'm like, ugh. I was easier when I was numb. But I'm so glad that I can finally feel them. But like I also grieved my old life. like, yeah, life's great, but like I used to party and like know all these people and like had a name for myself. Um and I'm saying that in the most sarcastic way I can as possible, because like looking back at the life I had, it wasn't a life. I was barely coasting by. I was even the thought of it, like especially when I look back on like photographs and stuff like that, where I'm like, yeah, you kind of like you're like making out that you're so happy there, but I can remember how I felt in that moment. So you do grief the loss of just being able to do certain things, like have a drink, take drugs recreationally, but you also realize that, look what that did to you. So it's kind of very much black and white for some people. There's a lot of gray area there. For me, it was like, yeah, okay, cool. Sometimes I'm like, oh, what if I could? And then I'm like, yeah, no, but you can't. So shut up. And that's normal. Like it's normal to feel that when you're sober. Like sometimes I don't think about it, and I'm like, Jesus, sure, a bottle of wine, and then I'm like, that's hilarious. Fucking recovering addict, because the thoughts swap in. Do I ever want to drink? No, but like them things, I'm like, Jesus, maybe I'll have a bottle. Like it's a sunny day or something like that, or I've had a stressful week. I'm like, Jesus, wine, and then within seconds, I'm like, I'm fully, and that's just how it happens. But also like grieving the loss of friends that I thought I had, grieving like the reaction to me on social media and stuff like that, because I used to say some unhinged shit, and like I would be posting stuff and I was off my face. um Grieving like how people would act around me, and like, oh, I was the life of the party and all. Yeah, because I had the drugs and I was the one that was always drinking and up for the party. So like it's grieving the loss of who you thought you were as well. It's not just grieving like the party lifestyle and you know what you thought that was amazing, but it's grieving that life because that's all you knew. And you're grieving your old self. It's like having an ego debt. It technically is an ego debt, because that was an ego that protected you for so long, that like gave you this bravado, and you have to grieve that person and like feel the emotions. And like grieving yourself is as bad as grieving the loss of someone else, whether it's a relationship, a debt, a friend, losing any of them in regards to like from debt, or just in regards to you grow apart or you fall out and stuff like that. When you're grieving an old version of yourself, you feel like this imposter syndrome, where like, but that used to be me, and this is now me, and you kind of you judge yourself for the old person, and then you're judging yourself because you want to make sure you're the best version of yourself. But no one knows what the best version of themselves are, and I think people that say they are the best version of themselves are hindering themselves, because every day you should be learning and growing and changing and taking things on and understanding other people's opinions, and you may not agree with them, and that's healthy. Having an opinion is something we all should have. It's like an arsehole, we all have them. Should everyone share them? No, because some of them are fucking shit. Sometimes people have lovely arseholes. I know a few people that do. But it's like that grief, and like it's hard to explain, because I don't miss old me, but I did grieve losing old me, because it was something that I used to protect myself. Like the bottom of the bottle was something easy to deal with, and like the constant stress and anxiety and money worries, that was what I had become accustomed to. That. So like you do grieve that, and then obviously you relearn about you. I grieved the person I thought I was, even though they were a monster in some people's eyes, but they were me, so I grieved it. Um, and then obviously it opens you up to completely learning about yourself, and like what you actually like, who you like, what you're happy to have in your life, what your boundaries are. And I found that was the biggest thing. I was like, oh, I like, should protect myself. I'm allowed to have boundaries. I'm allowed like remove people from my life that I don't think are good for me. And it's learning that you have self-worth, and that people care about you. And from someone, when you're in addiction, most people I know that have been in addiction and are in sobriety now, when you're in addiction, like you don't think anyone cares about you, and that's why we have the poor me's, and like, oh, everyone is against me, and you have like you have no self-love. So learning that again is so fucking tough because you have to be kind to yourself. Like it's like a newborn baby. You're like relearning how to be a human without these things that used to hold you down, and in your head they used to help you. So it's like relearning how to like talk to people, how to deal with situations, how to deal with stress, how to understand conflict, and apologize when you need to, because like you can understand that like you may be incorrect in a situation, and these are things that do not come naturally to someone who's been in fight or flight mode their entire time because they've been in addiction, and all they're wondering and caring about is when the next high is. And that was how our lives were. And like you start to care about things, about people, about what you have to offer to other people. And I know for myself personally, when I was in addiction, all I cared about was me. And now I'm not the last person I care about, but I try, care for myself enough that I can care for others. So I have to be well enough before I can help you. And I used to always put everyone else's feelings, emotions, and their well being above mine, and could never understand why I was so unwell, is because you have to be well yourself to help someone else get well. And that's just human nature. Like if you're on a boat and it's going down, you need to put that life jacket on you first before you try save someone else, because if not, your boat going down. You know, See what happened on a Titanic. That didn't end very well. But it's like you have to have that life preservation, dyslexia for the win, about you before you can like do it for others. And I suppose it's hard to balance that at the start, because you're like you may have hurt people in your life so much, and all you want to do is make them feel better, and forgive you, and like explain and show them like this is the person I am now. But you have to understand that that person as well has to be able to heal. And like as addicts, we tend to promise a lot of things, and they're empty promises. And you know you you're like, oh, this won't be, and then that happens, and like they have to learn to trust you again. And actions are usually louder than words. I've always seen. So like being able to show people like this is the person I am, this is the changes I'm making, and like letting them relearn who you are as a person. And like sometimes that happens, and like the relationship breaks down because you're not the person they thought they got with, or they married, or they had a life with. Because like when you get sober, you know you're not the person you were before. Like you are a complete and utter different person. Like you're still you, but like some people loved you for the things you did in addiction or how you acted. And sometimes I have seen relationships break down. I have seen the relationships get so much better. It really depends on like what part of you that person, was there for, whether it's family, friends, or whichever it is. But it's an understanding that life does go on, and you won't always have the people that you want back in your life, because sometimes people aren't ready or don't want to forgive you, and that is okay. And it's been able to deal with that. I think that's the main part of living a sober life, is understanding that it's not all about you. You are the main character in your own story, but that's it. In your own story, everyone else has so much else going on. You are but a side character upon their quest of life. And like I think that's the most beautiful thing I've realized about living a sober life, is that I can be there for other people. I can support them, but it's financially and mentally, physically, you know, it's being able to give a part of myself to someone else and not expect something back. And being able to like, just reach out that arm and like an olive branch and be like, I'm here if you need me. And they don't have to accept it, but being able to, and being in a place where I am both mentally, physically, and spiritually able to do that. Like it's so different. Like I went from lying in my bed, um, you know, on the verge of wanting to kill myself, and drinking myself and taking drugs into oblivion where I didn't want to be alive, to, meditating every day, and like, speaking to my spirit guides and being spiritual, and my higher power, and like, connecting to what I think is out there, and having that spiritual connection. Like, before I recorded this episode, I had a little moment with my higher power, and I burned some San Paulo and cleansed the area, and it's just the ability to like be able to be with myself. But then that gives me the power to be with others as well, is because if I can't sit with me, how do I expect myself to sit with others? Now, I have noticed, living the sober life, I'm not here for the bullshit. That's the one thing. It does give you a bullshit meter. And I'm very protective of the people I have around me. I'm very protective of my circle. I don't allow negativity. Obviously, that's something natural, but people who are inherently like, energy vampires and are extremely negative and that kind of stuff, I try keep that out of my circle and my space, and what I do on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes that happens, and like, you promptly remove them, and advise them like, look, this isn't good for me. And that's the thing. I think it's understanding other people's feelings as well, that like, that person may have, said something mean in the moment, but like, you don't know what's going on with them today or what's happened. And it's having that ability to be like, okay, maybe something's going on here. I know they said something, but let's not be rash and, jump to a conclusion. Speak to them about it. It's like being able to understand that everyone has something going on. And like, there is amazing things that have happened to me in my sober life. I have my dog Georgie. He is the biggest pain in the arse, but also the best thing that has ever happened to me, because I have the ability to take care of him. When I was in active addiction, that dog would not be alive if I had got him when I was active. Um, and Dan, like the love of my life. I get to spend every day waking up and like going on this journey of life and seeing what's out there for us, and helping Dan with his struggles with life and stuff like that. And just being able to provide for him and for Georgie, and like help my family, and like excel in my job. And it's not really about the monetary things. The fact that I can wake up and I don't take drugs and I don't drink anymore, the fact that my head on a good day is quiet. Don't get me wrong. I have several mental health issues and I have ADHD. This brain does be going 90. But it's quiet sometimes. It's the small things. It's the ability to wake up and look in the mirror and say, I am worthy. I love me. I'm a good person. That's the things. Like, you might get a great job, you might get all the money, you might get your marriage back. But it's the small things. It's like, being able to look family members in the eye and like know that they're there to support you. And there's you know yeah, there's past things, and you get relationships back and you understand people more. And it's just, I think it's amazing what it can offer, and it's on offer to anyone that wants it. You just have to like, you really have to want it. Over the years of like trying to get sober, so many times it's like, I want it, but I wasn't ready. I think that's the main thing to take away from this. You have to be ready and want it, because don't get me wrong, being sober is amazing, but it's a lot of fucking work. Like, I don't just go to wake up and be like, yeah, I'm fine. I have things I need to do to make sure that I'm fine. Um, and like, that's the thing. I need a routine. I need like to go to my meetings. I need to, practice my meditation, and, you know, self-love and self-care. But it's a beautiful life, and it's on offer for whoever wants it. But also, you don't have to want it either. Sometimes some people aren't addicts, but they have an unhealthy relationship with said substance. And, sometimes you have to have a step back and like look at how you consume, whether it's media, pornography, a substance. You have to kind of understand the way that you absorb that. Is it healthy? because I think everyone needs a little bit of sobriety in their life. And I don't mean like you need to be sober from X, Y, and Z, but like the understanding of other people's feelings and the mental calm and understanding what your true purpose is and what you need. Like I have always inherently been a spiritual person. I've never been much into religion. Some members of my family are. I'm not. I have my own beliefs. But just having been feeling like you're connected to a bigger thing has given me such like comfort in knowing that, there is something else out there, and life is worth living. And you're gonna have down days, you're gonna have great days. But like we're all human. At the end of the day, we're all on this journey on a fucking floating piece of dirt in a fucking universe, spinning around, hurtling towards our death. Like, if we're really honest about it, we are minuscule, tiny things in the vastness of this universe. But also, we're part of the universe. And just understanding that there's much more out there than just you and what's going on. When you take a step back and like you take yourself out of the equation and like, okay, let's stop worrying about me for a moment and just see what else is going on around the world. It gives you a bit of clarity to understand what you need to really care about and understand, like, not to sweat the little things, because life's short and it's worth living. But yeah, that's just my touts. Wolfie's touts and Silver Life. I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode and that the sound quality is a lot better. Don't forget to follow the podcast if you like it. And if you can rate us on Spotify, that would be great. 5 stars. If not, DM me, tell me why. No, but any feedback is very, very much welcomed. I can only get better at doing this with people's opinions. Like as I said, everyone has them. They're like assholes. Some of them assholes are nice and lovely. Some of them opinions are just fucking mean. So, as my mother used to say, if you've nothing nice to say, keep to your fucking self. But yeah, thank you for listening, and see you on the next one.